Welcome to Lesson 2 of Advanced Enum, Chapter 8. You will learn to utilize properties and methods within enums to write beautiful and safe code. The examples they're going to use in this lesson include storyboard, UI color, and cell identifier. Let's begin. Welcome to Learn Swift Bob. Today let's talk about the real advanced enum. We'll learn how to apply static mutating methods with self to make your code, or actually you're gonna be, so you're right now is like right here. Your Swift level game is like here, but when you take this lesson by the end, you'll be like right above here, okay? So let's take a look at what's happening. So it's all about practical examples in this lesson. So when you take this lesson, you probably want to go back to your own application right now and then be like, oh, this is I don't even want to take a look at it. This is so like cringy, you know? Anyway, so let's start with the storyboard. So when you're making iOS development, you could have one storyboard called main, or you could have multiple storyboard, which is preferred, because if you only use one storyboard and there are like 20 view controllers, you could have like a spider web around, you know? You could have a lot more than one storyboard. So let's say we have a storyboard contains a couple cases. Let's say profile setting and newsfeed. Okay. We also have an identifier. What it does is, by the way, enum can have enum just like blueprints. You can have just like classes and structures. You can have methods. You can have a property. You could have anything just like any. You can also confirm to a protocol. Okay. So now we have a storyboard has a property called identifier, and as you can see, this is a gettable property. And what it does is self.raw value. What is self in this case? Well, self refers to the object itself. So for example, let's say we have a profile. Let's say you have a profile picture, not a picture, storyboard, enum type. So as you can tell, this is actually an object right now. This is how you make an object. And when you do profile dot raw value, right? Self, this is object. So self refers to the object here, refers to returns profile. So when you do profile dot identifier, it's literally returning the raw value of this object. So it should be profile picture. So how this is useful? How is this useful? Well, you know, when it comes to coding, you never want to type that much. Well, first of all, the best code is no code at all, and that's rule number one. And number two is the more you type, the coding means making bugs. All right, you will never make grammar errors if you don't write at all. You will never make any code mistake if you don't write your code. Okay, so that means when you type more, especially when you make a lot of string values. So when you're working with UI storyboard, maybe some of you guys are guilty of doing something like, you know, typing like main, view controller, whatever. But look, the more you do those kind of stuff, what's going to happen is you are making more bugs down the road. You don't want to do those. So how to prevent that from happening? Well, here comes the enum. So even if you make a mistake right here, profile, what's happening is going to tell you, hey, this is a problem right there. I'm wanting to fix it. Boom. You know what to do. So how is it safe? Well, it's not going to compile until you make this change. Instead of just, if you are making like just single like a couple like string words, UI view controller, and then you type random words, it's gonna crash later. But when you have this enum, it's not gonna even compile when you're running this code. Okay, it's not gonna return that nil, unexpected nil. You don't want to have those, right? So enum is actually a safer way to go about instead of just typing a bunch. I don't want to type. I hate typing. First, I make a lot of typos. So now let's learn how to become more like a Swift developers. So Swift developers, they make APIs. Again, APIs nothing more than code written by somebody else. Okay, I could make API. Apple made a lot of API for us, like all the UI kit. Those are code written by the Apple engineers. All right. So but for when you're making API, you want to present something that's useful, clear, and concise, but does the work. So this, I'm gonna show you how to design a good API. So for example, let's say you have a function. What the function does is the function describe what the storyboard is. Okay, describe what the storyboard is. Describe storyboard. Okay, you're gonna enter storyboard. You're gonna enter a parameter called storyboard, and then it takes the type is gonna be storyboard. So that means it's gonna get the type of storyboard. You have to enter the object of profile setting newsfeed. Okay, and then it's gonna return something like string value. What it does is it describes it, and the rest I'm just gonna copy and paste because I'm kind of lazy, and I don't not really lazy. When I say lazy, I'm not really lazy. I want to save your time so you can maximize your learning. Okay, that's what I mean by lazy. Okay, just maybe I'm lazy. So here we go, storyboard, and we have a storyboard can be profile setting, newsfeed, and then you can have a storyboard identifier, blah 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 blah. So what it does is amazing. So let's try to call this method here. So clearly you can enter a profile like this if you wanted to, all right? You can also enter like this, or you can do something like you make an object right away on the spot, profile. But here, you don't need to do any of those. You can just simply make an object just like this by click and choose. How's it? This is so beautiful. So anytime you see something like this, when you have a dot, you're using enum, and when you're using alert view controller, okay, it's not that important. As long as you see this, pick and choose, you know that the Swift engineer is actually using enum a lot. And I love using enum. It's a very safer way to go about, and it doesn't allow you to type, just to pick and choose. Here we go. We can have setting. It's gonna print log out and invites on the bottom, I believe. Here we go. Here we go on the right side, setting here. So all good. Here we go. So that's it. That's how you make an API. So if you're making an open source project, it's so incredibly important for you to decide how to design your code. And when it comes to coding, enum is amazing because even if you've never done coding, even if you have never seen the internal code, the function itself. Let's say I've never seen this function before, but I still know what to do because I know what to enter. I know there's a setting. I know there's a profile. I know there's a newsfeed. Okay. So you're now become a better developer. But now we're just getting started. I think there will be about 200 lines of code in this lesson. So let's keep learning. So here we go. So we talked about the design API goal. I'm gonna keep coming back to this goal more and more. But let's move on. So let's say we have enum called meal process. By the way, this is separate from the first one, mutating method. By the way, talking about mutating method right there. Okay, we're gonna talk about static later down the road, but we know what to do with self now. But mutating method now. Yeah, we have a breakfast, and let's have some sort of description here, message, and then we're gonna have a function. What the function is? Let's say you make an object. Okay, let's call it meal process dot breakfast, and then let's call this breakfast. Let's current meal. So when you want to have a function like this kind of stuff. So I have a meal, and then let's call it next meal. And what's happening is you're getting the next meal becomes. So right now current meal is what, breakfast. But when you call this method, I'm using semicolon. Wow, man. So I've been coding a lot with web development for making my own website. And when you're using JavaScript, you have to put a semicolon. And you can tell I've been coding a lot with JavaScript these days. That was interesting. So when you call this next meal method, what's happening is now the object property of the case turns into lunch. And then when you call the next meal again, now the case turns into dinner. Okay? So how to do that? Well, I'm going to call a method called next meal. And first of all, let's begin with printing something here, self.description. So when you call this next meal, it's gonna time to move on from breakfast, right? Right now it's breakfast, and then you're gonna have some sort of implementation. What it does is it's gonna change the case value. So right now it's breakfast for current meal, but it's gonna be changed soon. So how do you do that? Well, we're gonna use switch, and here comes the self. You know what self is? Self refers to the object itself. So this is the self, current meal self, and the self, the case of self is right now breakfast, right? And then here we go. We're gonna have just copy paste this because I don't want to waste your time, or you can call it I'm lazy. however you want it, call it. Respect your time. Here we go. Oh, by the way, I didn't talk about mutating function here. Well, what you have to use mutating function if you are when it comes to value type. Enum is actually value type. I'm not going to talk about it a lot in this lesson, but in the later chapter, I'm going to talk about how enum is value type in I think chapter 10, I believe. Mutating function is needed for value types. When you're working with structs and enums, you have to enter mutating function, mutating word, if you are interacting with its own property. So right now, own property or own case. So right now, breakfast is like is a value associated with this. There's a value for breakfast, but you're changing. So mutating function, you have to use it if you're changing the current value or case. Okay, let's prefer now put it that way. For structs, if you remember correctly, if there's a var, if you are changing that var property, you have to, the function changes that property, you have to have mutating function. That's kind of similar idea. You're changing the case to breakfast, lunch, dinner, that you are simply you have to use that mutating function for reference value type, which is enums and structs. Okay, so you have a self dot equals dot lunch. So you're literally making an object. You could be you could be meal processed at lunch, but you don't have to. You're making you're assigning this case with lunch. Okay, so here we go. So now when breakfast becomes lunch, when it's lunch becomes dinner, there's like a cycle going on forever. Where's the error right now? Yep, I'm missing this beautiful semi brackets on the bottom. Here we go. Now he can call the couple methods. So right now, if you take a look at it, it should be breakfast, lunch, and then the dinner, breakfast, dinner. Keep repeating yourself. So that's how you make yours. That's right now. I'm kind of showing you how to work around with things without having to use classes and classes and structs. A lot of people, when they code in Swift, the first thing they do is make a class. Okay, you don't have to do that. Sometimes your readability, your how, when somebody else read this code, and sometimes better, because when you're using enum, you can tell, oh, there's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So when you're using classes, however, a lot of times it should be property, right? But it's not that clear. But when it comes to enum, you can tell what you're working with. And when there's mutating method, you know what to work with. You're working with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it becomes much more, along with the self-class case and cases, it becomes much more readable. So I recommend you guys not just go straight with classes and structs, but kind of take a look at what enum can provide for you and then use it in your project. So you're going to have to think a lot. I'm going to show you as many practical examples in this lesson, but at the end of the day, it's your job to make sure go out there when you're coding. You got to use all the features that I've taught you and then become a better developer. Okay? So now let's talk about static method. We talk about mutating method. Now let's talk about static method. Static method is nothing more than being able to use some sort of function or static method properties, function or property without having to create an object, right? So I'm just gonna copy this because I feel like I'm getting a little lazy, or I'm respecting your time. So let's say we have Apple devices. We have 4 cases. It could be iWatch, iPhone, iMac, Mac Pro. Okay, and then you want to have a static method. What a static method is, what it does is you're gonna enter the name of or whatever. You can call it whatever. You can enter iPhone, but it's gonna get the Apple device type of value. Okay, and then here we go. We have return it. So switch name. You're gonna enter the name. If it's iWatch, it returns iWatch. Okay, iPhone, Mac, blah blah blah. And then here we go, nil. Why is that nil? If you enter like Samsung Galaxy S, it should return nil. All right. In programming in Swift, you cannot have nil in normal type. So you have to have what do you call that? Optional type. So whenever you do this part, it just automatically turns into the optional. Okay, so here we go. So now when you can do let Apple user product, Apple devices, get Apple devices, name that iWatch, and what happens is now user product becomes, it returns what? It returns Apple devices. Okay, returns an object, and then the object has been assigned to user product right there. Okay, so now if you do like S3, SS, it's going to return nil, I believe, on the right side. And if you enter Mac Pro, I think it has to be case specific, which I don't like it. Mac Pro returns Mac Pro. Okay, cool. But I have to tell you, if I were the Apple engineers and making this kind of, or let's say just making an open source project, I probably would not code this way. Here's why. you're repeating yourself a lot yourself. So there's like a case, return. There's like I watch, iPhone. They're repeating a lot of repetition going on, and I cannot say this is the best way to go about. What if you have a lot more longer lines of code? What if you have I watch, iPhone, iMac, Apple Pencil, Apple glasses, Apple microphone, Apple notebook. They'll iBook, ebook, whatever, iNotebook, iMonitor. It gets longer and longer, right? So in that case, how to go about that? Well, I'm going to refactor this code, okay? I'm going to refactor this code. I'm not saying this is bad, but we can make it better. Let's make it a little better. So here we go. So first we're going to design Apple devices, same thing. And we're going to have a static method. The time is flying now, so I'm going to go a little quick. So get product, you're going to enter the name, and it's going to get the Apple devices, okay, optional type. And then here's the thing, you're gonna initialize it. You're gonna return that object, right? Learn about, you can make an object in the last lesson, created by using raw value. Raw value right now, you can enter, you can make an object, return it. Okay, that's not it. We're gonna have one more static method. Okay, I'm gonna have one more static method like that. I'm gonna walk you through, just wait for it. So you're gonna say get Apple device, okay, you're gonna enter name, and then you're gonna return Apple devices. Okay, cool. And then here we go. Apple enters name. Case I watch, iPhone, iMac. Here's the thing. Here's the secret. You're gonna use this get product. We're using this get product static method here, entering the name you've entered here, right there. Okay. You enter the name, becomes enter. Okay. So when it's iPhone, you're literally entering here the iPhone. And then it's gonna get the Apple devices. Okay, return the Apple devices. iPhone, you're gonna return iPhone. If it's iMac, if you enter S3, it's gonna return nil, because if you remember in the last lesson, if you enter some sort of value that has no raw value, it's gonna return nil. So here we go. And then, as you know, and also this initialization always return optional type. And here we go. We have optional type. And then that's it. So I've refactored this code into this way. Okay, that's how you code. That's how I have designed my open source API. If I were to create my own, that's how I try to refactor as much as I can. There's not many repetition going on. There's only one return case default. Yeah, I watch, but not like this part where you repeat yourself a lot. Okay, so this is how I go about this. Okay, so let's talk more about this. So now let's learn more about enum. So enum also can have custom initialization. So right now, this is also one of the initialization method associated with raw value, but you can have your own custom initialization method. So for example, I'm just copying this. We have an Apple device string, all right, iWatch, iPhone, iMac Pro. You can have this init method here, but this is a failable initialization method, okay? You can have like enter some sort of value here, iWatch, okay? If his name is iWatch, self, that becomes iWatch, okay? And if it's else, it returns nil. We learned about failable init method in the past, right? So we can make an object of using like this way. You enter iWatch, name it. So you can have iWatch returns iWatch object of Apple devices, okay? But you can also, raw value is just one init method comes along with. Just automatic comes along when you're working with raw value, but you can also have your custom initialization method. Okay, doesn't matter which one you like to use, but if you want to make it more explicit rather than raw value, here we go. You can use your own custom initializations. Okay, cool. So let's become more. Let's how to utilize this custom initialization method. How it can be a little more useful. So let's say we have a int category, okay? We have a small, big, weird. So whenever you enter some sort of value, you want to tell, hey, is it big, is it small, is it weird number? So this is how you do it. This is how I do it. This can be useful for just like telling how big is the number, telling it, hey, this is too big, this is too small. This is how I do it. So you enter int value of int, and then you're gonna go through the switch statement. So if it's from 0 to 1000, it's gonna return small. And from this number, you're going to return medium. From this number, self becomes big. Default becomes weird, okay? So whenever you enter some sort of value, make an init category, and they initialize it with number, it's going to return the object itself, which is weird. So that's it. So I would use enum init method all the time if I were to kind of compare something and then assign some sort of a data to that particular place. Like if you have like umbrella, like int category or barcode, you can initialize it. I'm not making sense right now, but I think you get what I'm trying to say. Okay, I think you guys know what I'm trying to say. Just by if it doesn't make sense, then just take a look at this example. I think this example what I wanted to say. Okay, so. Okay, I'm kind of rushing through because there's a little more code to write about. So let's talk about more practical case. So we could have like a HTTP error. So we have code 4.1 bad request. Okay, for 4.1, 4.2, you can have payment required. This is for interacting with the server, right? So you can have a HTTP request, HTTP error, and they can have a code 4.0 and they can description. Here we go. You can make it more practical. You can just enum for that. Okay, how amazing is that? Whatever. So now these can be useful for cell identifier. Again, you never want to code all the time. You never want to do that. Okay. You can have a raw value, blue button value cell, unit edit cell, label cell, whatever cell you want to talk about. I don't think you also need this part as well. You just automatically have that raw value associated with it. So here we go. You can have name on it. So you're able to organize your cells without having to type all the time. You don't want to do that. Please don't, right? If you've been doing that for a while, please, time to move on from typing all day. It's time to move on to enums. Or allows you to provide this beautiful infrastructure, beautiful blueprint. You'll never make a mistake out of it. Okay. And also this is important for UI kit. So for example, let's say you're working with some sort of I'm gonna walk you through. Let's say there's a navigation theme. All right, there's a placid, clear. Placid means clear, warning, danger sign, and then you can have bar tint color, UI color. Depending on navigation theme is placid, and bar tint color returns clear. If it's warning, returns blue, danger, red. So this can be useful. So for example, when you make an object with color situations, navigation theme placid, and you can get color situation bar tint color. You can get the bar tint color right there, and then apply in your code. Okay, I'm not showing you the iOS development, but if you are able to utilize it, use it if you can. If you cannot, wait for the next course. You'll be very surprised how I do something like this. For me, I do a lot of research. Instead of making just purely apps, I study a lot, and what I try to do is to get the best out of there. Also, by the way, you can also have a extension. If you know extension, extension allows you to have a custom init method as well. So you have an extension here, navigation theme, number of tasks. Okay, if this number of tasks is from 0 to 3, it can be useful for making UI table view, self the placid, self the warnings, self the danger. So now here it comes. We can make an object, navigation theme, enter the number of tasks, bar tint color. You get the you get this amazing color red. If you have a 5.3, I believe it's gonna get the clear color. There's no color. So here we go. Okay. Yeah, it was a long lesson. I kind of rushed through it because there are 200 lines of code, and I know you guys are trying to catch up. If you need to pause any video, here we go. So in this lesson, we talk about practical aspect of learning, why enum can be used for development, and this is why one recommendation, final words, I want to say that when you are approaching, when it comes to making a blueprint, making a structure, again, do not always simply go for classes and structs. You don't want to do that. Enum is such amazing blueprint. It provides amazing structure. Not only increases readability, but also allows you to have a safer code. If you talk about it in a couple of times, and just amazing. I love working with enum. So wait for the next course, see how I do stuff with enums. You'll be amazed by that. And see you in the next lesson. Yeah. But this is only lesson 2. There are like 5 more lessons to go about. you will be surprised how you code in the future. So let's go. See you guys in the next lesson. You've tasted the power of enums in Swift. Again, no more typing. In your head, I'm sure you're thinking how you can apply enums to beautify and make safe code in your current project right now. iOS engineers have not used enum. We might have to memorize all the colors just like the JavaScript world. When I do web development with JavaScript, what happens is I have to memorize all their names. Or I go to documentation and then eventually memorize in the long run. But Swift, you don't have to do none of those. You can just simply pick and choose by using enums. In the next lesson, let's learn how to combine multiple enums within a single enum. See you in the next lesson.